welcome to Back Issue Book Club, a weekly examination of the most memorable storylines in comic books. I am your host, Tristan Cooper, otherwise known as Private Marvel. Who else do I have with me today?
I'm Andrew Bridgman, and I'm actually an 11-year-old boy who was magically transformed into a huge nerd by a wizard.
Okay, spoilers.
I'm Carolyn Page, and I am very ready to believe in magic to save my family.
Wow, that's the catchphrase for the new movie. That's the tagline right on the poster right there. I am very ready to use magic to save my family.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This week we are reading Shazam!
Shazam!
Volume 1. Oh, don't say it like you mean it, or otherwise you will turn into a giant buff man. Right?
No, I'll
Shazam!
turn back into a little boy who has hopes and dreams.
Okay.
Until he turns into a sad old man like me.
That makes a lot more sense. This one, volume in particular, is by Jeff Johns and Gary Franks, the New 52 version. It's very complicated. Before we get into it, I did want to ask our guest, Carolyn, what is your sort of history? What was your impression of Shazam or Captain Marvel going into this? Were you familiar at all?
No, Shazam is was not really on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of honestly hoping that this was Kazam.
Okay.
About the movie.
Okay.
Or Shazam, which is how people remember the movie.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it wasn't.
Oh, it sure isn't. It's very different. Comic books are complicated, and there's so much baggage, and that's why we like to do a little roundup called the continuity catch-up. And basically, what I like to do here is sort of like look into the background of these characters. Like Shazam / Captain Marvel has like a long and storied history, but for some reason he's kind of like a blind spot in like he's a blind spot in my superhero knowledge and a lot of other people's superhero knowledge. And even though this is like sort of an entry point, an easy, kind of an easy to read reboot, there's some things to sort of like keep in mind for the character. Andrew, did you have any idea, any knowledge of this character whatsoever?
There's an episode of The Simpsons where Gomer Pyle says Shazam, and that's all I knew about him.
Well, he is. He's such a weird character because he was created in the 1940s, and for a little while there, he was bigger than Batman and Superman. He was Captain Marvel, as he was known back then, was such a huge deal. Like, wow. And it was he stayed a huge deal for most of that decade, and while sales declined, he eventually got embroiled in a lawsuit. Him and his publisher, I should say, Captain Marvel, fictional person.
Well, they found out he was actually a child, and he was impersonating someone else.
Yeah,
so that not good.
So the reason I found Captain Marvel so weird is the fact that he's got this like red underwear look. He looks like an old-timey like 30s, 40s superhero, and he's always looked that way. And the thing is that in 1953, I believe it was, DC Comics basically sued the publisher, Fawcett Comics, at the time, and was like, "Hey, you can't make Captain Marvel comics anymore. He's too much like Superman," and which is like.
Okay.
There might have been some specifics, but eventually the comics weren't selling that well anyway. So basically, they stopped making Captain Marvel comics for a long time. And right in the 50s was when the Silver Age of comics came about. That's when comics started looking a little bit more like you recognize them today.
Uh-huh.
That's when the Flash stopped being an old man with a colander on his hat and like jeans that are like way too high.
Sad.
And he started being
change.
I know, that was a great look for him with like the pot on his head or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was good.
So Captain Marvel never went through the Silver Age. He basically skipped it all. And so he's remained this sort of like golden age character that's popped in and out of DC Comics. DC basically just like took it over. And in the meantime, go ahead.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel is a DC character. Shazam is a DC character.
The same one.
Yes.
So while Captain Marvel / Shazam was out of commission, Marvel itself made their own Captain Marvel. The copyright had lapsed. They weren't taking care of the copyright. So Marvel was able to put out their own Captain Marvel, not Carol Danvers, her predecessor before this. And it's so bizarre to me that they're coming out with a Captain Marvel movie and a Shazam movie within 1 month of each other now.
That is crazy. Wait.
It's like ants in a bug's life.
Oh, yeah.
This is Deep Impact and Armageddon right here. They're the exact same film.
Did Marvel Comics get their name from Captain Marvel?
No.
I think it was just an old-timey thing. People said, you're a Marvel. That's marvelous.
That's probably
this
true.
is the 1960s. They all sounded like Catherine Hepburn.
That's marvelous.
If you're born before 1980, that's how you talked.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, in between then, Marvel kind of snaked the Captain Marvel copyright, and so when Shazam / Captain Marvel eventually came back, DC, who's now publishing the character, could use the name Captain Marvel, but not really put it on the covers of any comics. There's 1 or 2 comics out there that are the original Captain Marvel. It's Shazam, the original. And Marvel's no, cease and desist. You can't do that anymore. So for a while, Captain Marvel was his name in the comics, but not on the cover of the comics. And so that's why it's been so tough to brand and name this character. For this story right here, they just renamed him Shazam. We'll just call him Shazam. That's his name. That's his special power. That's so much easier. We'll skip it. We'll skip it all.
That makes sense.
He's Captain Marvel is not really part of the military. You know what I mean?
No, he has a
He's
rank.
not a captain. You're right.
There's no general. There's no General Marvel. You know what I mean? As Carol Danvers, that makes sense. You know what I mean? So we should really get into this. That's
You're
a lot
right.
of.
It's stolen valor.
It is. But he's such a strange and weird character, and I do think he needed updating, and that's what this book tries to do. So that's where we'll start, I guess, with the book, what we call the book breakdown, the meat of the show. We're gonna go through the book chronologically, try to figure out and piece out our favorite parts, our the story, and sort of come together and decide, is this book worth reading or not? So I don't know, Carolyn, what were your first impressions of this book?
First impressions, super on board. I'm like, this seems great. The art is so cool. Mm-hmm. But then quickly it arose. I was like, oh, they seem really willing to just accept a one-word explanation of something. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, well, because of this, magic must exist. Mm-hmm. Or sure. His real power Billy's real power seemed to be logic. Mm-hmm. Because they show all these people getting down to the wizard's lair, the Rock of Eternity. Mm-hmm. And then the wizard's like, I need a good person. And Billy's like, you're not going to find it. And then he's
purity politics.
He's just that no one's ever thought to try that argument.
Sure.
Or just
I'm not going to argue with a wizard. I'm like, oh, it's a wizard.
We should back up. We should back up
sorry,
a minute.
if I jumped the gun.
So Billy Batson is the child. He's 11, 14, I think.
He's 15. I looked this up.
15?
15?
Yeah. He's 15.
Really?
He's kind of a small 15. He's a little scrawny. He's a foster kid being kind of punted around from home to home, finds a very loving family. And he immediately shits all over them because I'm a bad kid. I'm a foster kid. I don't know my parents. Get out of here.
I'm gonna hang out with tigers.
This is immediately a departure from the old type of Shazam comics. And Shazam has always been this maybe even brighter than Superman. Just sort of this shining example of goodness and purity, and especially in the 80s grim and gritty stuff. He was always kind of around, just being good.
Well, he's a kid, so he's got that naivety and optimism.
Not when you're 15, though. Oh my God, that's the darkest time of your life.
Oh no, that's right.
Yeah,
well, that's what was great about this. Is that. Yeah, this read is this is a angsty teen.
Yeah,
exactly. So you see some sparks of good in him. Even though he kind of tells his family, "Hey, I'm not your family. Get out of my face." He does defend them. In a way, if bullies show up, he doesn't like the bully, so he'll just punch them directly in the face. A lot of hospital bills, I feel were involved there. Hospital Billy. Wow, great, perfect.
Even better than Captain Marvel and Shazam.
And the whole time, as you alluded to earlier, we see the wizard sort of like summoning other people from around the world to like test them.
Yeah.
Basically, he's like, "Hey, are you worthy?" And they're like, "What?" And he's like, "Nah, you're not." And
Yeah, you're not pure. I've been looking for 8,000 years and still haven't found anyone.
Yeah, and then Billy's just like, well, you're not going to find that. And the wizard's like, you're right. I'm not going to find that. That was a problem for me.
Yeah. It is when Billy himself is summoned, the wizard is on his last legs. He's just like, hey, the bad guys are coming. I can't use you. And as you said, Billy uses one sentence to just like blow his mind, like for forever.
People are flawed? What?
There's no perfect warrior or anything. He's like, well, I guess I should use you. It just sort of like collapses on the floor. And in the background, something we haven't brought up, Dr. Savanas yet, who looks just like Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a very, like, straightforward bald man.
They love a bald villain in the DC universe.
I guess so.
I think there's more, like a higher percentage of bald villains.
Yeah, we got Mr. Freeze as well.
Yeah.
And we talked about Lex Luthor.
Brainiac.
No hair there.
Dark Side or Seed.
Yep.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah. There's a lot going on here. I do think a lot of it is made up with Gorilla Grodd.
Oh, yeah.
Extra hairy
Extra
villain.
hair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
He's got a lot of transplant.
Yeah. Sinestro has kind of like a 5 head going on, so that's kind of an in-between.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I get it. So Dr. Savanas is the one. He's basically responsible for unleashing Black Adam, who's basically like the evil Shazam at this point. He was locked away for thousands of years after the wizard gave him power, and he abused the power. We don't know exactly at this point in the story like what happened, but
what's wrong with his family?
I am so baffled by that.
He's talks. It's totally unimportant to the story.
What?
Dr. Savanas, he's
gotta
always
save
like,
his family.
My family. Also, is all your family sick from like a disease? Because it seemed like he was like, I tried medicine, but like all your family has the same disease. Why don't you have that disease?
How terminal is this disease? He's doing this for like a decade.
Yeah, so long. It's like they're fine.
They seem to be doing okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't like. Does he visit anyone in the hospital or anything?
No.
Like that?
We never get any idea what is wrong with his family.
Oh, you guys don't know the answer to this?
I looked it up on Google afterward, like, where's Dr. Savannah's family? I didn't find anything. He just talks to a caterpillar, and that's it.
Well,
I don't know.
Mr. Mind. We'll get to Mr. Mind. He's not family. Not family.
Internet,
for
let
sure.
us know what's wrong with Dr. Savanas' family, because this is a mystery.
It's kind of like a superhero version of Fast and Furious, I think. It's all about family. From the good guys and the bad guys.
Which I really liked that. I liked seeing Billy, even though the one girl wears toe socks, which is inexcusable.
Wow.
But having stories about siblings, it's like so underrelated, especially stories about siblings where they don't fuck each other. Like the only stories about siblings
See, this is
are
where we
like
disagree.
incestual stories. That,
I only like that ultimate version of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver where they're constantly having sex.
Yeah. But there's not enough stories about siblings and families, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely true. Like, it's a very wholesome, like, kind of like, oh, this is nice. The whole book felt like a movie. It felt like this is the outline for a movie. Just adapt this pretty much directly, and you got a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
You got this uplifting, family-friendly ending.
The writer, Jeff Johns, has been, like, in the mix as far as DC Comics. Like, at this point, I'm not sure if he was, like, editor-in-chief. He was pretty high up. Right now, he's at DC Entertainment. I want to say he might be the chief creative officer. He's like way up there for the movies right now. He's been climbing the ladder for a long time, and so you can see like him kind of like looking ahead and like basically like making this his sort of like stand for like a movie version of this, because like a lot of comics, for better or worse, I think this comic does an okay job of telling a story while also being kind of movie ready. But a lot of comics are just like prototypes for movies. So a lot of times you'll find a lot of
Mark Miller stuff.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of that stuff that is just sort of like, I wouldn't say movie bait, but it is like almost like a little bit better than a script. It's like, hey, it's a published comic. You can say this is an adaptation.
We've
got
pictures,
the storyboards.
It's already storyboarded.
Exactly. So
you just need to cast The Rock as like 7 different characters in this, and then you can do it.
I'm on board.
Yeah.
The Rock has been campaigning for Black Adam for
He's cast
years.
as Black Adam.
Is he? Is he?
Yeah, he's been cast as Black Adam for like a decade almost, and they just don't put him in movies.
That's one of those things that I'll believe it when I see it, when it comes out. You know what I mean? And it could. There's the Shazam movie is coming, and I can't believe that either.
Well, this really did make me excited to see the Shazam movie now. I wasn't that excited before, but after reading this, I'm like, okay, I really like. It's really like the family part at the end. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be fun. This is one of those moments in the theater where I'm gonna be like, oh, yes.
I do think that the idea of the whole concept in the meat of the middle of the story is basically superhero version of the Tom Hanks movie Big.
Yeah,
it's basically kid turns into a big buff dynamo. Shazam!
Just like Tom Hanks.
I've got a cool,
huge and buff.
I've got a cool cape with a hood now.
But he fights crime instead of like catfishing a woman.
Yeah. Listen, they're kind of both in the wrong there. She took advantage of a child in a man's body. He tricked her.
Didn't know.
She didn't know.
Yeah, how did you not know? Look at the guy. Something's off there.
As someone who's dated plenty of children in men's bodies, she didn't know.
Okay.
Classic zinger.
That's one of my favorite parts is in the middle of the book where he just like turns into Shazam and he immediately starts abusing his power.
Yeah.
He's just like crushes the bully's dad's car. Just like he's been like the wizard's like, oh, are you going to be good? He's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll be good. I'll help humanity or whatnot. And it's like, okay, yeah, dunk.
Listen, that guy was a big jerk.
He was.
He became the embodiment of all sin.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's really abusing his power. That guy was a dick.
Yeah.
And he was obviously driving a gas guzzler, so he's saving the environment.
Sure.
Really, it's kind of more insulting that Superman isn't constantly just smashing up bad people's cars. Because, come on.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Superman's kind of asleep at the switch, I think.
Interesting.
He needs to abuse his powers a little bit more.
Yeah. I do like how throughout the book Billy becomes Shazam. He's there with one of his new family members, Freddy. And him and Freddy are basically like, once they have an adult on their side, a big buff adult, they have these misadventures where they're like trying to get beer, they're trying to like have fun teen times while also they keep running into crimes.
Yeah.
I like how they explain that basically looks like, hey, you're magical. So you keep running, you're drawn to like people who need you.
It's almost like reverse Domino's powers.
Yeah.
How do you mean?
Like Domino always gets like things work out.
Sure.
He's kind of always drawn to where things are going wrong. Still seems like a lot of crime.
Right.
In that one like couple block radius.
The magic solves like a superhero trope. It's like, how is Batman like finding instantly there whenever someone is getting mugged or Superman or whatnot? And I guess Superman can hear everyone, but and Batman is probably like creeping on everyone too, I guess.
And just constantly hiding in the shadows, like hoping something happens.
Yeah. Exactly. Meanwhile, Black Adam is like loose. He's just sort of like hanging out in the real world.
He kills a CEO.
This is probably close to around the time of like the Occupy Wall Street stuff.
Yeah.
So, because I believe this was published in 2012, 2013, maybe. And so you have a lot of Occupy Wall Streeters out on the street, and he basically sees the CEO as a king that has wronged them.
Yeah.
And so he just like drops them out a window.
And capitalism's gotten a lot better since then, so we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, like CEOs are good and nice now, so we don't have to worry about this.
Yep. People are afraid of him, and he's like, what? I just did you a favor.
Hey, he's like, hey, I helped you guys out.
You're welcome.
His character was so wrong. Just like on he's just like a bad listener, basically.
Yeah.
Is like no listening skills, no observational skills, cannot read a room at all.
He strikes me as like very Namor-ish. Like
even
like
he's a villain, but he's also a little bit an anti-hero. He means kind of well.
He's got kind of that same widow's peak as well.
Oh, he
the eyebrows.
totally looks like Namor. Yeah.
Exactly. That's just sort of the vibe I always get without Atlantis. So
he's missing the pointy ears though.
Yeah.
And the little wings on his feet.
Okay. Wow. You're putting that
Let's
all
talk about
together.
Namor,
Maybe
guys.
they're tucked up into his leggings.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah. I didn't get a look at those feet. If you got a picture of Black Adam's feet, send them to me.
Or the Rock's feet.
You know, listen, I'm going to check out Wiki.
So scared.
I'm going to check out Wiki Feet after this. I'll update you guys. I'll see what I find.
On what?
Wiki Feet?
Is that real?
Wikipedia?
You guys haven't been on the internet long enough if you don't know about Wiki Feet.
Does it have fictional people's feet as well? Does it have like comic book feet?
Listen, we're going to find out.
Andrew's making this up.
No, what? You think I'm making up Wiki Feet?
Is it a real thing?
Oh my god.
I would employ
I am way too online. This is not a good look for me.
Do not Google this.
Stop watching right now. I don't need people to know this about me. Mm-hmm. I know what it is.
Okay.
Oh god, this is an interrogation.
Okay.
Oh no.
Well, let's move on.
So deep.
Please.
I'm so deep.
We can move on to the next bit where basically Black Adam is drawn to Shazam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is like charging around the city, just sort of like hanging out, doing his thing. And Black Adam wants Shazam's power.
Yes.
Yeah. Like there's like a limited amount of like Shazam power.
Yeah, the wizard
and it's
only has
split between two people now.
Yeah. The wizard only has so much wizard juice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As it is. And Black Adam's just like, hey, I want it. Give it to me.
Give me all that juice.
I want all the wizard juice to kill all the CEOs.
Oh my god.
I really enjoyed their interactions because he's like this big evil buff man.
Yeah.
And Billy's like this big strong buff man, but like with a little child's voice. So he's like, hey, oh, your suit's like mine, but it's black. It's so cool. Oh man, that's sick.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, hey, how old are you? And then he immediately gets punched in the face.
Yeah, and like thrown through like 3 buildings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot more fun to me than like the, general like barking at each other or like empty platitudes like superheroes and supervillains kind of like get up to. It's like, hey, you're a lot like me, or like I'm nothing like you. It's just like a kid just like trying to figure out what's going on while getting beat up.
Yeah,
that does totally happen though. Like a couple pages later,
yeah,
he's like, we're the same.
Yeah,
but you're not the same. It's like, you don't know me, kid.
That's like every superhero movie since the dawn of time is like, hey, oh, it's this other character that's exactly like me. It's Iron Man and Ironmonger.
But different.
It's Venom and other Venom. It's
Black Panther and Black Panther, but a little gold.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit of gold in there.
Yeah. It makes sense in this context, at least, because they are part of the same. They've got the same wizard juice going on. Yeah. Meanwhile, there are the 7 deadly sins kind of like popping off, who kind of appear and like seem like they're set up for later.
Yeah, like this is going to be a bigger, because they don't really get explored much.
Yeah, they're gonna like come back in other issues, probably, right?
They just turn into the Balrog. And
well, they combine. They kind of like do a little.
They just turn into the Balrog.
They kind of like Voltron a little bit.
Okay.
Well, because they're originally people.
Yeah.
The Draco Malfoy bully's dad turns into, what was it, Greed?
No, they all
possess
him.
Oh,
and he's the worst guy.
Okay.
So we're all going to go into him and turn him into the Balrog.
Sure.
Okay, a couple thoughts on the 7 deadly sins.
Okay.
I was reviewing them earlier this morning, and the 3 of them are just the same. Like, lust, greed, and like...
Which one was lust? Because pride was like the pretty lady.
I think lust was the one with...
The top hat.
Yeah, or lust was the one with the big bag on...
The big sack? That's lust?
I don't know. I couldn't...
What's in lust's bag?
Just a bag of dicks.
Full Metal Alchemist did the sins... We should just stick to that format.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I kind of have problems with this. I just feel like let's let them go. Also, like, these are not... Lust is not, like, a sin. Rape could be one of the 7 sins. That's bad. Sure, but, like, wanting things, I just think that's a bad message. And we're, like, already so ashamed of the things that we want.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, like, from the Bible or something.
I think...
Maybe not even the Bible. Maybe, like, some, like addendum to the Bible or something that came out. Whatever Sevenin did.
Bible Appendix A.
Yeah. You know, the JK or not, the J.R.R. Tolkien extra bits. It's like that.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit too much because they've got plenty going on in this story as it is.
Yeah.
And in the movie, I think it's just Dr. Sivana's. Maybe Black Adam will make like an appearance towards the end.
Doesn't seem like it. Seems like it's just going to be Dr. Sivana, but he's got powers now.
Okay.
He can punch really hard.
Okay, sure.
But what happens to his family?
I'm so concerned.
Yeah, I hope they explore that a little, because I'd like some explanation.
What if it's a twist and he actually has no family and he's just like crazy? But he's like, the only way to get family is through magic.
Maybe
which seems like the case in
maybe
this book.
His family has the acute case of being dead, and he's trying to revive them.
Oh, maybe.
That's a tough
That'd be
one.
a good twist. He's like trying to rise them from the grave or something like that.
Ooh.
Speaking of family, we have to go back to Black Adam's origin story, which we get through like a helpful. But there's this lady who appears in the mirror. What's her name?
Francesca.
Francesca appears to deliver a lot of exposition and reflective surfaces. And so we see Black Adam's backstory kind of faked out for a minute. It almost seems like, Black Adam is this little boy.
Just like Billy.
Just like Billy thousands of years ago. Black Adam is the little boy's uncle who murders him and steals his power.
To fight the Ibeak people who invented evil.
Oh.
Do you see that line? There's like this fictional Arabian country.
Sure.
And
where everyone is very pale and presumably would die of melanoma afterwards. Like, magic can be real, but so is evolution. Like, just make them. It's not hard to make some brown representation of these people who lived in the fucking desert.
And then they get invaded by barbarians who invented evil. That's what they say. They said there wasn't evil before these people came along.
How do you invent evil?
That's what I want an explanation for.
I missed that movie, The Invention of Lying. So.
Isn't that like original sin or something?
Listen, I don't know the Bible. I don't know history. I don't know anything.
The gods and stuff, the magic is like, it's magic. It's magic. Everything can be explained away with it's magic. It is less confusing than the original Shazam's powers, which were from the gods. Shazam is an acronym. Do you know what it stands for?
Yes, each letter is from a different hero.
Yes.
And at one point his name was also Shazamo, but that hero Augur turned evil and they got rid of that.
Okay.
But Shazam, it's like the Z is for Zeus.
Yep.
One of the A's is for Artemis, the other one is for Atlas. I think it's Achilles. Oh, Achilles.
And one of them is Solomon, and one of them is Mercury. They're mixing and matching a lot of gods from different pantheons. So because we've got Greek and Roman and Solomon from the Old Testament.
Yeah, the wisdom of Solomon. Yeah.
It's like a shield thing where like we came up with the name first and we had to fill it in later, probably. One of the A's is for Alan Alda. I don't know.
Strategic Homeland Atlas Zeus Defense. I don't know.
That's fine.
I don't know.
Shazad.
So magic is also how Shazam figures out, I can give my powers to my adopted family. So he zaps them all and they all become like older, like buffer versions of.
Yeah, they become Shazam versions of themselves.
Yeah,
the Shazamily.
The Shazamily.
There we go.
As we have coined on this program, never said before, ever, never will be said ever again.
Trademarked. DC, we're suing you in case you ever use it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Fantastic.
I'm gonna get real litigious here.
And at that point, the wizard juice is kind of diluted, and so you sort of like. I'm just trying to be as accurate as possible in my portrayal of what is happening.
Sure.
And fights kind of ensue. This is the part where it gets like it's very last act action movie heavy. We've got a lot of plot. There's a lot of lead up to Billy like getting his powers and everything like that, like getting to know his family. And towards the end, everything seems to happen very fast. And there's a lot of new things introduced all the time. As we mentioned, the sins like sort of Voltron together into the Balrog from Lord of the Rings.
Yes, with a big pentagram on his chest.
Exactly.
So a cooler Balrog.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't think it could get any cooler, but it did.
Oh man.
And basically, Billy also ends up talking his way into defeating Black Adam as well. He's got a really good way of just sort of like baiting adults.
Yeah, that's why his greatest power is logic, saying one word of like one sentence.
Yeah.
And they're like, the adult's like, well, that checks out.
And so he turns into Billy and he's like, hey, why don't you be a man and kill me as an adult instead of killing me as a buff man? And so Black Adam turns back into a human and starts rapidly aging like he drank from the wrong grail.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. This brings up an interesting thing, because at first I was trying to understand kind of what is the Shazam power, what is it actually doing, and thought, oh, it just makes you like older and stronger, but like that's not the case at all, because Black Adam is actually incredibly younger. It's just basically turning you into your ideal self.
Yeah, they say it's like the optimized version of you, which I feel like I have Shazam powers, and this is
You're
it.
already the same.
So I'm just
right
like,
here.
this is that.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting, too, that, like, Pedro grows a beard when he becomes his Shazam, and no one else is. Like, if you just get older, your hair would grow out, right? Only Pedro's does. This brings me to a very important point.
Okay.
When Billy becomes Shazam, he's becoming his father. Don't say, oh, no.
Okay.
You don't know where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Tristan might know where I'm going with this.
Look.
Does Billy turn into his father, basically?
He does. He does look a lot like him
like his dad, but buff.
Right. In Kingdom Come, by Mark Waid and Alex Ross, Shazam is Billy Batson is grown up, and he looks a lot like Shazam, like when he's Shazam, I guess you could say.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So he basically looks like his father. We see a photo of his father early on, and Billy effectively looks the same, except much more buff.
Right.
Okay.
So he's becoming his ideal version of his father.
Sure.
This also means, if you take a look at Shazam, Tristan knows exactly where I'm going with this. He's got his dad's dick now. He's got his dad's dick. Everything transformed.
What?
He's got his dad's dick. His whole body is transformed.
I can't believe that there was a minute and a half of you explaining lead up to.
You weren't here for the Hulk episode.
Listen, I'm only about examining characters' dicks now and their feet.
You know what? Let's do it.
But it's his.
I'm on board for that.
It's not even necessarily his dad's dick. It's his ideal vision of his dad's dick.
Sure.
That's the end of my digression.
I wonder if there will be a scene in the movie where
he looks at his own dick and was like, "Oh,
goes,
Dad!"
Yeah, like, hey, oh my God, it's my dad's dick.
Yeah,
great.
Does Tom Hanks do that in Big?
He's got. He's gotta, right? When he's on the piano, he's like, "Whoa!" and he's dancing.
He's like, I can feel my dick flapping around. Should have worn tighter briefs.
Tom Hanks is big for days, so he's got to go to the bathroom at some point.
I mean, he has sex, so.
Does he?
Tom Hanks? Yeah. That was what we were talking about.
Oh.
He fucks that woman.
Yeah, the one his coworker.
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
All right. I also want to address the coolest part of this book, which was the tiger.
Oh my God.
When the tiger transformed, I literally threw my arms up and was like, woo!
I was a little disappointed that the tiger did not also get a buff body, kind of like Garfield's Pet Force.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, tigers are pretty buff already.
Tigers are buff.
Coated with muscle.
And he gets like lightning stripes.
Right. I didn't notice that.
Oh, it's good.
I didn't
catch that's
that.
Nice. But he's just like a bigger tiger. And I was like, maybe he could have had like really, buff muscles too. Because apparently I looked this up. I didn't look up anything else. But I was like, I want to know more about this tiger. And apparently it's based on an old character called Talkie Tawny, who was like a humanoid tiger who hung out with Captain Marvel.
That's the most like 40s name.
It's
Talkie Tawny. Katharine Hepburn loves Talkie Tawny.
Katharine Hepburn would make a great Tawny. I hope she plays Tawny in the film. But yeah, no, you're right. Like that moment, I was like, if this is not in the movie, I'm going to be so upset.
It was so cool and so sweet that he like brought that tiger sandwiches.
Yeah,
but without pickles.
Because the whole reason we haven't touched on the tiger at this point. The whole reason is because the only family photo that he has is of his mom and dad in front of the tiger cage. So he feels like the tiger is the only part left of his family, which is why he's able to give the tiger some wizard juice. And help him out with battling Black Adam.
But doesn't that, him giving the tiger wizard juice kind of fucks over his human siblings?
Kind of, a little bit.
Because apparently he did the animal spell wrong. There's a different animal spell you have to do.
Right.
And because he screwed up that spell, it screwed up his other spells. And they became weak and lost their powers.
Right. But they won the day in the end.
Yes.
I don't quite remember how. Oh, I guess it's just because they talked Black Adam out of being...
into murdering. And then we get the little like post-credit stinger. Like, oh, there's a little bug. Dr. Savanas, who is basically like kind of desiccated a little bit. He's very old and shrivelly and like dying because he's like exposed to magic.
Yeah.
He meets a Mr. Mind, who is a 2-inch space bug.
Caterpie.
It's a Caterpie who eventually evolve into a Metapod and then a Butterfree.
Well, then you put it in a PC box.
And then you just put it in the box after it evolves. And yeah, I can't wait to see if they do Mr. Mind in the film. Like, imagine, like, because it seems like you do Dr. Savanas and then you do Black Adam, right?
Yeah.
And then who do you do? Who's the Rogues Gallery after that? I guess it's Mr. Mind because like that's where the comic goes. But do you like have how does that look on screen? Like Shazam fighting like the Hypnotoad, basically.
Oh man,
is what Mr. Mind is.
I'm into
Sounds
that.
like it looks awesome.
Yeah, that sounds very cool and good.
Yeah. So before we wrap up today, I do want to do one more thing, which is our panel picks. We each have selected our own individual scene or panels that best illustrate our own feelings on the comic, our favorite bits. And so, Carolyn, why don't you go first?
I think mine really speaks for itself. It's Dr. Savanas talking about his family, and also in one line being like, "Magic exists." Like that checks out. Magic exists, and that. So I like this panel because the art is very evocative. It's really good, but it's also just like totally glossing over some plot points. Like some of the plot was so well developed, like Billy's character and relationship to these other characters, and like his struggle with being a teenager and not having family, and then other plot points were just so casually glossed over.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I get that. Andrew, what about you?
I really enjoyed the middle section of the book, where he's just kind of abusing his power, because it is like the ultimate wish fulfillment for a kid. Like, what if instead of being this weak, powerless weenie, you got to be a big, strong adult?
Sure.
And you could
With
do
your
stuff.
dad's weenie.
With your... Yes. Carolyn, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Tristan.
No, it's
Tristan's
fine.
canceling the
Let's
show.
keep going.
It's fair.
Let's keep it going.
This is a good way to end it. And he, at one point, rescues a woman from being mugged.
Right.
And she's like, "Oh my God, what can I do to thank you?" And he's like, "Can I have some money?" Because like that's like the perfect kid answer. And she gives him $20 and he's just like, "Yes."
Yeah.
And he has this really devious look on his face, like, "I'm gonna spend $20."
That's like
he's got the power of the gods.
Yeah.
And all he cares about is having $20.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you mentioned, like Gary Frank does such a good job of doing such a shitty little kid face.
I got it.
Like it's the power of a god, like holding $20 American dollars.
$20. He's gonna go buy like a 6-pack of beer or something, and that's his whole plan. That's all he wants to do with having the power of the gods. It's great.
Yeah.
Tristan, what about you? What was your favorite?
Well, that was mine, and so I had to
sorry.
do a backup. I picked another one. There's a lot of like really fun splash pages. We've featured some of these so far, but I really like Gary Frank's expressions. They're so good. He's so good at putting a little kid's face on a large, bulky man's body. And the part where just after the Shazamily like gains their powers, they kind of look at each other and go, what do we do now? And like Shazam's just like, oh, we get him. We get him. That's all we do. So they just all tackle him. I just thought that was a very nice little moment. It's kind of unique to this character, I think, who has no idea what they're doing, but has a lot of fun doing it, I guess.
Yeah. No, it all struck me as like this is a very almost like early days Peter Parker-esque kind of thing.
Sure.
Especially compared to the rest of the DC pantheon, where they're these very like powerful, mythic, very sure of themselves characters.
Sure.
Having this like kid who's like, I don't know what we're doing. That was really fun.
Yeah.
Would you all
nice.
recommend this to folks before seeing the movie, or just like in general, kind of like interested or like confused by the character?
I would. I thought it was a super fun read. The art's awesome. You get to see a sweet tiger. I would reread this again. I really liked this.
Cool.
I would agree. Even for people who like aren't into comics, the way this whole thing is structured, there's not a lot of like big breaks or cliffhangers that necessarily ends on. It feels like one very cohesive story,
right?
And it's really fun and really good. I'm genuinely very excited about the movie now.
Yeah. Jeff Johns and Gary Frank have worked together for like a long time, and you can really like tell like the writer and the artist like kind of like know each other's language at this point. And Gary Frank doesn't do like, he's like so good, but he also like maybe takes a little bit longer because his art is great. And he's doing all these covers. He's like doing well in other places. So to have like a full book of just Gary Frank art is kind of rare these days. So that's really nice to have. But yeah, it definitely seems like the book to pick up if you're interested in the film. And that about wraps up our time with Shazam. Next week, we are reading Hellboy, The Chain Coffin, and Others, which is, for those at home, that's Hellboy Volume 3. Don't worry about the ordering and anything like that. I picked something that has a bunch of self-contained stories in it. We're gonna skip the origin story. Everyone's seen the origin story of Son of Satan or whatever. So we're gonna get right into the good stuff. So until then, we will see you in the funny papers.
Look me up on WikiFeet.
Ugh.
I'm sorry.
Hey folks, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out dropout.tv. You can watch this and lots of other Dorkly shows 1 week early. Right now, you can watch another episode of this, and there's tons of other fun stuff.
Yeah, there's other shows like Actually, Dimension 20, What the F101, and lots of other stuff you'll love.
And you can try it all for free for a whole week, so you should definitely do that.